What if the final Battle of Hogwarts hadn't gone exactly as you remember it? What if, in that moment when everything burned, when magic cracked through the stone walls like thunder and loyalty trembled between love and legacy, one of the most unlikely souls made the most human choice? Tonight, imagine the great hall before the last curse was cast, candles shattering mid-air, sparks raining down, the smell of smoke, fear, and something ancient hanging in the air. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm really curious, from which part of the world are you watching this video? Write your country in the comments. Let's see how far this little story has traveled. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand inside the Great Hall, and it feels like the beating heart of every story ever told about courage and consequence. The enchanted ceiling flickers, as if it can't decide whether to mirror the storm outside or the inferno within. The war has dragged through the night. Every stone of Hogwarts has absorbed its share of screams. You see the bodies, some still breathing, some not, and it's hard to tell whether the light trembling over them is spellfire or dawn. At the far end, Harry Potter faces Voldemort. Behind him, the world holds its breath, and there, on the edge of the scene, almost forgotten, stands Draco Malfoy. Pale, sleepless, his once perfect robes are torn and bloodied. His wand hand trembles, not with fear, but with something older. The exhaustion of living in two worlds that never fit together. For years he was told what to believe, who to hate, and how to survive. Now all that's left is choice. The family that raised him has already crumbled. His father disgraced. His mother, somewhere in the shadows, praying for the world to stop spinning. And him, Draco, the boy bred for victory but trapped in hesitation. He is watching the battle that will define everything he was supposed to be. Somewhere behind him, the ghostly green light of an Avada Kedavra arcs across the hall. It hits a column, explodes, and sends dust through the air like falling ash. He coughs, steps forward, and for a heartbeat the scene slows. He can see Harry's face through the haze, not the boy who humiliated him, not the rival from the Quidditch pitch, but someone human, mortal, terrified, yet standing. It's the face of someone who never chose this war either. That's when Draco realizes something cruelly ironic. Both of them were trapped by prophecy, though only one of them had a story worth telling. Outside, the storm rages over the castle towers. The sky flashes purple and gold, as though even nature can't decide who deserves the light. The forbidden forest hums with magic, centaurs watching, creatures restless. Somewhere a dragon screams in the distance, freed from its chains. It feels like the world is breaking open. You can hear fragments of spells, shouts of loyalty, the unmistakable voice of Professor McGonagall yelling orders like an old general who refuses to surrender. Beneath the chaos, there's the steady drumbeat of footsteps, of decisions made too late. Draco grips his wand tighter. He remembers the words Voldemort whispered in Malfoy Manor, "You will serve me, or you will perish with them." Those words were meant to sound like power, but to Draco they always felt like a sentence. His entire life has been a rehearsal for obedience. But here, in this moment, surrounded by crumbling walls and flickering firelight, obedience feels smaller than it ever has before. For the first time, he wonders what it would feel like to act without permission. To your left, a group of students, Hufflepuffs of all people, rush past carrying one of their wounded. There's blood on their sleeves, and one mutters something about Neville still fighting near the courtyard. The great hall trembles again. Part of the enchanted ceiling caves inward, scattering sparks across the flagstones. Somewhere near the dais, Voldemort is shouting, his voice cold, sharp, metallic. It's not words anymore, it's noise. The sound of something that has forgotten how to be human. Draco takes another step forward. He sees Bellatrix Lestrange dueling Professor McGonagall, laughter spilling from her like poison. He sees his own aunt fall, so suddenly, so absurdly human in death, and it stings him in a place he didn't think could hurt anymore. He feels no triumph, no relief, just emptiness. Scholars still debate what truly went through his mind at that moment, whether he saw his aunts fall as justice or tragedy. But Draco himself, if you could ask him, might say it was the first time he realized that evil doesn't die gloriously. It just collapses quietly. Then comes the sound that will echo for the rest of his life. Voldemort's voice cracking, the final spell beginning to form. He can see Harry's wand flicker in defense. Too slow, too tired. It happens in less than a blink. A flash of green, a surge of heat, a breath that catches halfway. Every instinct in Draco's body tells him to turn away, to let it happen, to survive. But something older moves him instead. A memory not of war, but of a boy on a train so many years ago, offering his hand and being refused. That wound never healed, but tonight it becomes a reason. He moves before he knows why. One step, then another. The spell hits, and the world explodes in color, green, gold, red. The old-school banners igniting like flags of destiny. Draco raises his wand, but not in defense. The charm he casts isn't one his father ever taught him. It's instinctive, half-remembered from his school days, one of those charms used in dueling club to shield a friend. It collides with Voldemort's curse mid-air, and the hall lights up as if the ceiling itself catches fire. Time stops. For a long heartbeat, all sound drains from the world. You can see Harry's eyes widen, see the green light split like lightning around Draco's spell, dispersing in 1,000 shards. The force throws both of them backward. Harry collapses to the floor, breathing alive but stunned. Draco lands hard, his wand skittering away. The noise returns all at once. Screams, fire, collapsing stone. Somewhere Voldemort stumbles, his fury burning like a wound. The final act of the war has just changed course, and no one yet understands why. When you breathe in now, the air tastes like dust and metal. You hear Ginny shouting Harry's name, Ron sprinting forward, Hermione's voice trembling with something between fear and disbelief. "Draco!" she manages to say, as if his name itself is a question. He doesn't answer. He's looking at his hands, at the faint trace of gold still burning on his fingertips, wondering what he's just done. In saving Harry, he might have doomed himself. Above you, dawn begins to bleed through the cracks in the ceiling. The war isn't over, not yet, but something irreversible has shifted. The Great Hall has seen centuries of magic, yet none of it compares to this. The sight of the boy, once called Coward, standing between death and destiny. Somewhere deep inside the castle, a phoenix cries, a sound that's part mourning, part rebirth. Draco stumbles to his feet. The look on his face isn't pride nor shock, but something quieter. For the first time in his life, no one is telling him what to do. No one is watching. No one is writing the script. He simply exists, a boy who made a choice, and the choice was good, and for tonight, that is enough. The world outside the Great Hall is collapsing. The sky above Hogwarts glows a deep, bruised violet, the color of thunder right before it breaks. You walk through corridors that no longer echo with laughter or lessons, but with the cries of ghosts being born. Smoke coils through the air, the castle's stones bleeding heat, as if the walls themselves are alive, mourning. Every spell that flashes paints another fleeting memory. Students once too young to fight now, standing where heroes fall. You can hear names shouted, lost, forgotten. It's war, yes, but also something far stranger. A test of what remains human when everything else has turned to ash. You find Draco Malfoy again, that silver shadow in the chaos. He's standing on the marble stairs just outside the Great Hall, staring into the inferno like someone trying to read the future in its flames. His wand hand shakes, but not from fear. His body is remembering the rhythm of obedience, the old reflex to wait for command. Round him the world burns without instruction. Somewhere above, the enchanted roof trembles, and a piece of chandelier glass falls, spinning, catching light like a dying star before shattering at his feet. He doesn't flinch. Across the hall, through the waves of heat and flickering light, Harry's silhouette moves, tired, determined, impossibly mortal. For a second, the two boys lock eyes through the haze. It's not a duel, not even a stare of rivalry. It's something more fragile, the silent exchange between two survivors of the same childhood storm. Harry looks at Draco as if seeing him for the first time, stripped of robes and rhetoric, just a boy standing in the wrong century, under the wrong prophecy. Draco remembers every encounter they ever had. The train, the insults, the failed friendship, the jealousy that was really admiration turned inside out. He remembers Snape's eyes watching him during 6th year. The way Dumbledore's fall echoed through his skull like a clock striking midnight on innocence. He remembers the dark mark, the promise that power would make him whole again. It never did. It only hollowed him out. He once thought redemption was a fairy tale told by people who hadn't been tested. Tonight it feels like the only thing worth testing. There's movement at the center of the hall. Voldemort, his voice low and cruel, is circling Harry, words slithering through the air like smoke. You can barely hear them, but you feel the weight. Accusations, mockery, the final verse of a story too long told. Harry doesn't respond. He just breathes, one steady, lightning scar faintly glowing beneath the grime. Around them, the Death Eaters form a ring, though fewer than before. Some have fled, some lie still. The loyal few remain, their faces pale, with something that looks suspiciously like doubt. Draco's breath catches when he sees his father among them. Lucius Malfoy looks older than he did a week ago, his dignity peeled away layer by layer until only fear remains. Their eyes meet for the briefest heartbeat, and Draco almost steps back. It's instinctive, the old pattern of flinching under expectation. But this time, something different stirs. He feels sorry for the man who raised him on arrogance but never love. He sees how fragile a tyrant becomes when the lies stop working. Draco, someone whispers, maybe Pansy, maybe his own conscience. The name hangs in the air like a decision waiting to be made. He looks back at Harry. The boy he once hated is still standing, still breathing, still fighting for something Draco never understood. And suddenly, in the flicker of firelight, the story changes. You can see it in the way Draco's shoulders drop, the way his wand lowers slightly, not in surrender but recognition. The great hall feels smaller, the space between them tighter, charged. A spell flies past, yellow, searing, scorching the floor between them. The blast knocks over a table, sending plates and goblets clattering across the flagstones. For a moment the air fills with sparks that look almost beautiful, like floating embers of a memory. Draco shields his face, heart pounding. When he lowers his arm, he sees Harry crouched behind a fallen bench, blood streaking his forehead, breath ragged but alive. And then it happens, the moment that will haunt Draco forever. Voldemort turns, wand raised, and in that instant the air seems to pulse with energy too ancient to name. The killing curse forms on his lips, the syllables carved from hatred and history. Draco feels time stretch thin. He could run. He could hide. He could pretend not to see. But that stare, Harry's exhausted, desperate stare, won't let him. The candle flames bend inward as if drawn by the tension. Dust rises from the floor, hovering in the magical current like starlight. You can almost hear Hogwarts itself whispering, "Choose." Draco's fingers tighten around his wand. His mind splits in two. The obedient son and the frightened boy, both screaming different things. Scholars still debate what drove him at that exact second. Fear of Voldemort, loyalty to his mother, or the strange pull of something purer. But maybe, just maybe, it was simply that he couldn't stand to watch another life end for a cause he never believed in. When the curse fires, it's not elegant. It's violent, raw. A roar of emerald energy surges toward Harry, and Draco moves without thought. The floor cracks beneath his boots as he lunges forward. The spell leaves Voldemort's wand like lightning, splits the air, and meets a second burst of energy. a shimmer of silver and gold from Draco's hand. The collision is deafening, brighter than sunrise. The magic ripples outward, shattering windows, knocking paintings from walls. The portraits scream. The backlash throws Draco backward again, but this time he lands on his knees gasping, every nerve in his body alight. He's not sure what he did. He only knows Harry is still breathing. Voldemort stumbles, his curse deflected, his fury twisting into disbelief. The great hall holds its breath once more. You hear footsteps, Hermione running to Harry, Ron shouting his name, McGonagall raising her wand in defiance. But amid it all, Draco just kneels there, smoke curling around him, the taste of magic like metal on his tongue. His hand trembles. His wand, his father's wand, glows faintly, a wisp of gold fading into darkness. Harry looks at him again. No words, just understanding. And for that brief eternity the battle stops, meaning victory or defeat. It becomes something smaller, quieter, more human. One boy saving another because neither can bear to see the other fall. Outside the storm breaks. Rain begins to fall through the shattered ceiling, hissing as it meets the fires below. It's the first sound of peace the castle has heard all night. You can almost feel Hogwarts exhale. Draco stares upward, water dripping from his lashes, and wonders, not for the last time, whether this moment will define him forever, or whether the world will pretend it never happened. Either way, the choice has been made, and history has already shifted, and somewhere in that quiet aftershock, as the rain cools the flames and the first pink light of dawn filters through, you understand why this story will never truly end. It isn't about who won or who lost. It's about the look shared across the fire, the one that said, "I see you and I forgive you, even if the world never does." The moment after the curse shatters feels like the world has stopped spinning. For the first time in hours, or maybe in years, there's silence inside Hogwarts. You can hear the rain tapping against the marble floor, the crackle of dying fire, the faint groan of ancient wood, remembering it's still alive. Every sound feels too loud, too real. You blink, and through the haze, you see Draco kneeling on the floor, wand fallen, breath ragged, hair plastered to his forehead. The spell he cast wasn't a curse, not even a shield, really. It was something in between, a desperate impulse turned into light. No one taught it to him. He didn't think. He just acted. For a second he doesn't know if he's alive. The heat still stings his palms. His ears ring with the echo of Voldemort's rage. Across from him, Harry is on his hands and knees, clutching his chest, his glasses cracked, eyes wide. It takes both of them a few heartbeats to realize what just happened. Voldemort's killing curse missed, not because Harry blocked it, but because Draco did. The Dark Lord turns slowly in disbelief. The expression on his face isn't anger. It's confusion, insult, something close to curiosity. "Malfoy," he hisses, the name slithering like poison through the smoke. "You would stand between me and him?" Draco doesn't answer. He can't. His throat burns. His wand hand shakes. But he doesn't look away. His silence is louder than words. In that silence, something ancient begins to crack. The illusion of inevitability, the mythology of power. You can see Harry watching too, confusion painted across his face. He knows what this means. If Draco just defied Voldemort, it changes everything. Not only the battle, but the story they've all been living in. Suddenly, there's a second savior in the room, one no prophecy ever mentioned. The air ripples with tension. Lightning flashes through the broken ceiling, illuminating the destruction. Fallen stones, shattered portraits, bodies lying in fragile patterns of peace and chaos. Hogwarts looks wounded but alive. It's as if the castle itself is waiting to see what happens next. And then, without warning, Voldemort laughs. It's not human laughter, it's cold, fractured like the echo of glass breaking underwater. "You think that will save you?" he says softly. "You think one act of pity erases a lifetime of cowardice?" Draco stands. It's clumsy, but he does it. His robes hang in tatters, his face pale against the glow of scattered fires. When he speaks, his voice is steady enough to carry. "No," he says quietly. But it's a start. That one line cuts through the great hall like a blade. The Death Eaters stir, uneasy. They've never seen anyone speak to Voldemort like that, not even Lucius. Especially not Lucius. And there he is, standing near the edge of the hall, trembling, torn between horror and something like recognition. His own son, standing where he never dared to stand. You can almost feel the unspoken sentence in Lucius's eyes. "You're going to die, Draco." But beneath that fear, there's something else. Pride, maybe, or envy. A father watching his son do what he couldn't. Voldemort moves closer, wand raised, every inch of him seething with disbelief. "You," he whispers, voice trembling with fury. "You were meant to be loyal. Your family's name is written in my cause. And yet here you are, throwing it away for him." His gaze flicks toward Harry, who's slowly pulling himself upright. Draco swallows hard. "Maybe you were wrong about what loyalty means," he says, each word like lifting a stone from his chest. "Maybe it isn't fear. Maybe it's not letting someone else decide who you become." And for the first time, Voldemort hesitates. Just a second, but it's enough. Harry feels it, senses the opening. Somewhere deep within his chest, the old fire stirs again. The instinct to protect, to finish what started years ago. He lifts his wand, slow and deliberate. What happens next will be retold in whispers for generations. Voldemort turns back toward Harry, his fury splitting the air, magic radiating from him like a storm. But his concentration wavers, just enough for fate to interfere. The curses collide again, red and green, light and shadow, the twin cores screaming as their connection reignites. The same echo from years before, the same deadly symmetry. Only this time, Draco is there, caught in the middle, the silent witness to destiny rewriting itself. He feels the force hit him like a tidal wave. His feet slide backward on the slick marble, his wand vibrating in his hand. The magic around him is so bright, it burns through his eyelids, flooding his vision with white. He doesn't know if he's helping or hindering. He only knows he can't stop now. Somewhere behind him, Hermione shouts something, probably his name, but it's drowned in the chaos, and then impossibly, the beam breaks. The green light falters, folds inward, consumed by something golden at its core. A shockwave tears through the hall, sending everyone to their knees. Dust rains from the rafters. The sound fades. When it clears, Voldemort is gone. Not dead, just gone. Vanished into his own recoil, like a curse devoured by itself. Silence. Draco lowers his wand. His hands shake. His breathing comes in short, painful bursts. He looks at Harry again, half expecting to see nothing but anger or disbelief. But Harry just nods once, firmly, no words. Just that nod, the one that says, "You did it. You mattered," and that's when the weight hits him. Not guilt, not pride, just the overwhelming exhaustion of someone who's finally stopped pretending. He sinks to the floor, resting his head against the cool stone, the sound of rain washing away the ash. Minutes, or maybe hours, pass before anyone speaks. The survivors gather quietly. McGonagall's voice trembles as she issues calm orders. The wounded are tended. The fires die out. The ghosts drift, soft and silent. It's not victory music. It's mourning turned peaceful. Later, when they find Draco still sitting there, no one quite knows what to say. Some call him a hero. Others whisper that it was an accident. Hermione, pragmatic as ever, just mutters, "He made a choice." That's what matters. Scholars still debate the details, but the consensus remains the same. It was the choice that ended the war. As dawn finally fills the hall, the first light catches Draco's pale face. And for the first time, it doesn't make him look ghostly. It makes him look alive. The redemption wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even intentional. It was a single, instinctive act of humanity. An echo of mercy in a place built for vengeance. And maybe that's how real redemption happens. Not with grand speeches or perfect timing, but in the split second between fear and courage. When someone decides, just once, to do the right thing, and that's the moment Right there, when the boy who once followed darkness stepped into the light. Morning comes late to a castle that has forgotten what dawn feels like. The rain has stopped, but the mist lingers, soft, low, clinging to the ruins like the ghost of a battle that refuses to leave. You walk through the great hall, now quiet, except for the steady drip of water from the shattered ceiling. The fires are out. The banners hang half-burned, their colors dulled to grey. And there, among the fallen stones and the smell of smoke, Draco Malfoy stands at the threshold, staring at the wreckage he helped create and accidentally helped save. He doesn't look triumphant. He looks hollow. The kind of hollow that comes after too many choices, too many versions of himself collapsing all at once. His wand feels heavier than it ever has, though it's the same length, the same core. Maybe it's because, for the first time, it belongs to him. Not to his father, not to a cause, not to anyone else's expectations. Just him, Lucius Malfoy, watches from a distance. He's standing near one of the fallen pillars, cloak torn, eyes dull and red. There's a streak of ash across his face that he hasn't bothered to wipe away. He looks smaller somehow, as though the loss of Voldemort has drained whatever illusion of grandeur kept him upright all these years. Around him, the surviving Death Eaters are being led away. Some struggle, some cry, some simply stare at the floor. Lucius doesn't move. For a long time, father and son don't speak. The space between them is filled with too many ghosts. Narcissa's absence feels like a wound in the air. No one knows where she's gone after dragging her family out of the Dark Lord's shadow. Scholars still debate whether she fled out of fear or wisdom. Draco suspects it was both. When he finally walks toward his father, each step echoes against the stone like a question. The sunlight cuts across the hall in fractured beams, dust swirling in gold flecks. The war is over, but peace still feels like a stranger knocking at a locked door. Lucius's eyes rise when Draco stops in front of him. He says nothing, but his expression flickers. Anger, relief, confusion. He studies his son's face, as though seeing a stranger in familiar bones. "You shouldn't have done that," he says at last, voice quiet, brittle. Draco almost laughs. "You mean save him? Or stand against him?" His tone isn't defiant. It's tired, almost gentle. Lucius hesitates, as if choosing his next breath takes effort. "Both," he finally mutters. "You've damned this family." The words hang in the air like smoke that won't clear. Draco doesn't flinch. For the first time, he doesn't feel like a boy being scolded. "Maybe," he says softly, "but at least we can stop pretending it wasn't damned already." That silence that follows isn't angry. It's heavy, like two generations realizing how little they ever understood each other. Lucius looks away first, shoulders slumping under invisible weight. The power that once commanded rooms now can't even command his own reflection. Outside, the courtyard hums with new life. Survivors gather, wounded but breathing. There's laughter, awkward and raw, the kind of laughter that only exists when you're still not sure you deserve it. Draco watches them through the broken archway. He sees Harry among them, bandaged, talking quietly to Hermione and Ron. They glance at him once, briefly, not with hostility, not with friendship either, but with that cautious respect given to someone who changed the ending without asking for credit. For a moment, Draco wonders if they'll ever speak again. Part of him hopes not. Some stories aren't meant to be reconciled. They're just meant to stop hurting. Later that day, he walks through the ruins of the astronomy tower. The wind is colder there, carrying the scent of burnt wood and something faintly metallic. Blood, maybe, or memory. This is where he once stood with Dumbledore. Where he couldn't do it. Where he chose fear. The stones remember. He kneels and runs a hand along the cracks in the floor, tracing the ghosts of choices past. "Funny, isn't it?" he murmurs, mostly to himself. How a single moment follows you forever. Somewhere behind him, footsteps approach. He doesn't turn. The voice that speaks is older, softer. "Moments don't follow us, Mr. Malfoy. We carry them." It's Professor McGonagall, her tartan cloak singed, her eyes tired but still burning with command. She steps beside him, gazing out at the wrecked horizon. You've given this place something it didn't expect, Grace. Draco blinks, not sure if he's hearing kindness or irony. I don't think anyone will call it that. Then let them debate it, she replies dryly. Scholars always need something to write about. That earns a faint, surprised laugh from him, the first real one in days. McGonagall doesn't smile back, but her expression softens. You'll find, Mr. Malfoy, that redemption doesn't come from applause. It comes from the quiet. And with that, she leaves, her footsteps echoing down the stairwell like punctuation to a sentence she's already finished. Draco stays there long after she's gone. The sun climbs higher, and the castle slowly wakes to the new day. You can hear the faint clatter of teacups being restored in the kitchens, the rustle of ghosts sweeping through the corridors, Filch muttering curses at the state of the floors. Life is trying to start again, awkwardly, like a song relearning its rhythm. He thinks about his father again, the man who taught him everything except how to be free. He remembers Lucius's cold lessons on power, lineage, and fear. How every choice was already made before Draco ever had a chance to think. And he realizes something. His father wasn't evil, just afraid. Afraid of being nothing. Afraid that without legacy he'd disappear. Draco feels that same fear deep in his bones. But now, for the first time, he decides not to obey it. He stands, brushing the dust from his robes, and looks down at the forest beyond the gates. Sunlight filters through the mist, scattering across the lake like glass. It's beautiful in a way he's never noticed before. Maybe because, for the first time, it's not being described to him by someone else. As he walks back through the great hall, he passes by the spot where he stood the night before, the place where his spell met Voldemort's. The marble is scorched, the air still faintly humming with leftover magic. He pauses, kneeling beside it, and whispers under his breath, "Not bad for a Malfoy." Somewhere in the castle's rafters, the faint cry of a phoenix echoes. Not Dumbledore's, but another, wild, untamed, newly hatched. Its song is faint, but it carries hope, and maybe that's enough. Draco doesn't look back when he leaves the Great Hall. The echoes will always be there, of his father, his choices, the war. But for once, they don't sound like chains. They sound like wings. And as he steps into the pale light of morning, you realize that the shadow of a father doesn't always have to define the sun. It can also mark where he began to rise. The first sunrise after a war is never quiet. It arrives hesitantly, as if afraid to touch what has been broken. Light creeps over the Black Lake, settling across the castle's wounded towers like a slow apology. The morning fog drifts through shattered corridors and half-collapsed archways, weaving around the ruins of the Great Hall, where two boys, one named by prophecy, the other by legacy, have altered the course of everything. The battle has ended, but the world feels like it's holding its breath, waiting to see what comes next. Harry wakes in the hospital wing, the smell of herbs and dust hanging in the air. Every muscle aches, but it's not pain that startles him awake, it's silence. The war had always been loud, roaring spells, screaming crowds, endless chaos. Now the quiet feels unnatural, too wide, like a room emptied of purpose. The ceiling above him is cracked, and shafts of pale gold light pass through the gaps, painting slow-moving lines across the white sheets. He remembers the flash of green light, the impact, the blinding explosion, and then faintly the outline of a pale face moving between him and death. He sits up slowly, realizing that his glasses are missing, then finds them on the bedside table. When he puts them on, the world sharpens just enough to make sense again. Across the room, he sees movement. It takes him a moment to recognize the figure sitting upright in a bed near the window. Draco Malfoy. Wrapped in a thin blanket, his posture rigid, his expression unreadable. His hair, once immaculate, now hangs in loose disarray, catching the sunlight like strands of silver thread. The bandages around his wrist glow faintly, with healing charm residue. For a long while neither moves, but they don't need to. The silence between them carries the weight of what neither can articulate. Outside the window, the grounds are still. The lake mirrors the light, and the forbidden forest looms with strange calm. The air smells like new beginnings, yet inside, the weight of memory presses down like invisible chains. Harry studies Draco in that light, not as an enemy, but as something far more complicated, a reminder that even in war, good and evil have blurred edges. The boy who once sneered across the classroom is now the reason Harry is breathing. Across the room, Madame Pomfrey moves quietly among the patients, her face pale but composed. Every bed is filled with someone who fought, someone who stayed, someone who lost. The living and the wounded share the same air, the same exhaustion, the same disbelief that it's over. Yet beneath it all, there's a strange current of relief, a fragile kind of peace born not from victory, but from simple survival. Hermione enters quietly later that morning, her clothes still marked by ash and dried blood. Her hair is tangled, her eyes hollow but steady. Ron follows a step behind her, carrying 2 cups of tea that neither of them will finish. When they see Harry awake, they smile, small, weak smiles that don't reach their eyes. They don't speak. They don't need to. It's the kind of moment that only makes sense to those who've run out of words. Harry listens to their footsteps fade, then looks back at Draco. The sunlight has shifted, falling across the other boy's hands, revealing faint tremors that he's trying to hide. There's no gloating, no bravado, no trace of the proud Slytherin prince who once mocked everyone who didn't share his name. Just stillness, just breath. In the hallways beyond, the castle begins to stir. Portraits whisper about what happened. Ghosts drift anxiously between rooms, and somewhere below, Filch mutters as he sweeps up bits of broken glass and burned parchment. Hogwarts endures. It always does. Yet there's a subtle shift in the air, something that feels new. The old rivalries, Gryffindor, Slytherin, courage, cunning, don't seem to matter here. Not when the dust is still settling over a floor where both lions and snakes have fallen side by side. By noon, the first owls arrive carrying messages from the outside world. The ministry is in disarray. The prophet presses for statements. Names are already being written into history books before anyone has the chance to breathe. Some call Harry a hero again. Some whisper about Malfoy, the traitor who saved him. The truth, of course, is softer than either story. It wasn't heroism or betrayal. It was something smaller, and therefore more profound. One boy choosing to do what was right, even if no one would ever forgive him for it. Harry thinks about that as he stands, ignoring Pomfrey's protests, and walks toward the window. The air smells of rain and healing potions. The sunlight hurts his eyes. He can see students gathered in the courtyard below, repairing what they can. A Hufflepuff helps a Slytherin bandage a hand. A Ravenclaw conjures a broom to clear debris. It's fragile, but it's hope. In the bed behind him, Draco lowers his gaze to the floor. The sound of movement draws Harry's attention, but he doesn't turn. It's enough to know that both of them are still here, existing in the same fragile quiet, no longer defined by what others made them. The afternoon passes slowly, and when the light fades again, Hogwarts looks softer. The ruins are bathed in gold, the scars hidden in shadow. Students drift like ghosts through the corridors, carrying supplies, comforting each other, piecing together fragments of normal life. No one talks about destiny anymore. It feels irrelevant now, like an old prophecy that has already fulfilled itself in unexpected ways. By evening, the great hall has been cleared enough for a single meal. The surviving teachers and students gather at the long tables, faces pale, expressions heavy but grateful. Plates appear, steaming, but few have the appetite to eat. The sound of silverware scraping against china feels too sharp in the quiet. The head table stands half empty. So many names are gone. Yet amid the emptiness, there's something sacred in the act of sitting together. Draco doesn't come down. He remains in the infirmary, sitting near the window as the light fades completely. From this height, the castle looks peaceful again, its towers reflecting the last colors of sunset. He watches the lake shimmer, the forest breathe, the faint glow of lanterns flickering on the distant bridge. For the first time in his life, he feels invisible, and he realizes he prefers it. The world will write its stories, twist its versions, find its villains and martyrs. But this moment, this quiet, belongs to no one but him. It isn't redemption. It isn't forgiveness. It's simply freedom, the first he's ever known. He leans back against the stone wall, eyes half closed, listening to the muffled sounds of laughter and sorrow drifting from below. Somewhere down there, Harry is probably trying to smile again, probably failing but trying anyway. Two boys who once defined each other by hatred now share the same exhausted silence. One lived because of destiny. The other lived because he finally chose to. And somewhere in that fragile symmetry, the war ends for real. The weeks that follow feel like the slow thaw after a brutal winter. The castle repairs itself with creaks and sighs, as if exhaling the ghosts that had lingered too long within its halls. Magic hums weakly through the air again, rebuilding staircases, reawakening portraits, coaxing the burned tapestries back to their faded glory. Outside, the hills bloom, the forbidden forest rustles with tentative life, and the black lake shines with an almost reflective calm. Yet even as nature forgets, people remember. Hogwarts has survived, but survival has never meant peace. The Ministry moves fast, too fast. The hunger for closure fills the world like a second war. Every name whispered during the battle becomes evidence, every act a headline. The prophet prints lists, who fought, who fled, who was forgiven. And at the center of this new theater stands Draco Malfoy. The boy who once bore the mark now finds himself dragged into a different kind of conflict. The quiet, merciless politics of redemption. He doesn't speak during the hearing. He doesn't have to. The courtroom hums with tension. The echoing walls of the Wizengamot chamber, illuminated by cold light, the polished floor gleaming like still water. Every eye in the room turns toward him, and he feels their weight like shackles. To his right sits Narcissa, pale and unmoving, her hand trembling just enough for him to notice. Lucius, hollow-eyed and ghostly, stares at the floor. The world that once feared the name Malfoy now studies it like a historical artifact, something dangerous but no longer powerful. The testimonies unfold like slow incantations. Former professors, auras, and students take the stand one after another. Some speak of cruelty, of arrogance, of the boy who strutted through the corridors of privilege. Others speak of that final night. The flash of gold, the deflected curse, the moment when Draco Malfoy saved the boy he was taught to despise. The words echo strangely through the chamber, as if even the walls are uncertain how to interpret them. Scholars still debate the exact phrasing of that testimony, whether the spell he cast was defensive or sacrificial. The ambiguity becomes its own legend. Outside the courtroom, wizards gather in the square, holding signs and murmuring arguments. Half call him a traitor, half call him brave. Children point through the crowd, whispering stories that change with every retelling. The world, it seems, doesn't know whether to punish or praise him. Inside, the air grows heavy. The head of the Wizengamot clears her throat, eyes sharp beneath her plum-colored hat. She reads from parchment, her voice clipped, formal, almost weary. The words, acts of cooperation, questionable allegiance, potential redemption weave together like an unfinished spell. Draco listens without reaction. He has rehearsed his silence too long to forget it now. When the hearing adjourns for recess, Narcissa reaches for his hand. He lets her. Her touch feels fragile, like paper too thin to hold weight. He wonders if she's proud or simply relieved. Lucius doesn't move. The old man looks like a monument to a forgotten empire, all marble dignity and hollow eyes. Later, when the hall empties, Draco steps into the corridor outside. The Ministry's marble floors stretch endlessly ahead, echoing faintly with footsteps and whispers. He pauses near one of the tall windows overlooking the city. London is alive below. Carriages gliding, owls darting through the early evening, lights flickering across rooftops. The world continues as if nothing happened, as if the war was just another story. He studies his reflection in the glass. The boy staring back looks unfamiliar, thinner, older, less certain. There's no trace of the arrogance he once mistook for confidence. Only fatigue and something quieter beneath it, acceptance. He knows that whatever the verdict will be, it won't define him. The real judgment already happened in the Great Hall, in that one instant of choice when he stopped being his father's echo. When the session resumes, the murmurs die down. The judge reads again, slower this time, her tone carrying something almost human. The words drift through the air. The court recognizes the actions taken by Mr. Draco Malfoy during the Battle of Hogwarts as contributing to the defeat of he who must not be named. These actions, though not absolving prior affiliations, demonstrate intent toward redemption. The hall remains silent. The verdict is neither condemnation nor absolution. It's something in between, a grey space, a fragile truce. A reminder that history rarely deals in absolutes. Draco nods once. It's not triumph. It's relief. The kind of relief that comes not from freedom, but from surviving another test. As he exits the ministry, the cold evening air feels sharper than he remembers. Reporters crowd the steps, their quills fluttering, their questions sharp and eager. He doesn't answer them. He simply walks past, head down, cloak trailing behind him like a shadow, finally learning to let go. The crowd parts, murmuring. Some jeer, some applaud. Most just watch. When he reaches the cobblestones beyond the gates, the noise fades. The city hums softly, ordinary and unbothered. The smell of rain mixes with the faint sweetness of roasted chestnuts from a nearby stand. He breathes it in, realizing it's the first ordinary smell he's noticed in years. That night, he returns to the manor. The house feels different now, less like a home, more like an echo. Dust floats in beams of moonlight, and the portraits on the walls regard him with frozen disdain. He walks past them without acknowledgement. In the drawing room, the table where so many dark meetings once took place now stands bare. The silence feels deserved. He stops by the grand mirror near the staircase, the same one that once reflected every Malfoy generation in their practiced perfection. The glass is cracked. His reflection splits in two, one side sharp, polished, unreal, the other faint, almost human. It feels fitting. He sits by the window for a long time, watching the moonlight spill across the garden. Somewhere in the distance an owl hoots, breaking the stillness. He thinks of Hogwarts. The sound of laughter he never joined, the warmth he never trusted, the strange mercy that came from a boy he once tried to ruin. The past is still there, but it no longer defines him. He knows the world will keep talking, dissecting his motives, rewriting the story. They will call him the reluctant savior, the accidental hero, the fallen aristocrat. They'll debate whether his redemption was real or strategic. It doesn't matter. He isn't living for their version anymore. For the first time, his life belongs to silence, to uncertainty, to the small, unglamorous act of starting over. He closes his eyes and lets the stillness settle. Outside, the world moves forward without waiting. And inside, for the first time, he feels no need to follow. Hogwarts changes after the war, but it does not heal in the way the professors expect. The castle becomes quieter, more watchful, as if the walls themselves remember who fell where. The portraits seem older, the ghosts less mischievous, and the magic that once sang through the corridors now hums in low, steady tones, restrained, cautious, like a wounded creature learning to walk again. Students return, but their laughter echoes strangely. Every smile carries a shadow, every step a memory of what was lost. The great hall is repaired, yet even its light feels different. It is softer, diffused through the ghosts of candle smoke and history. Slytherin House in particular becomes something entirely new. For the first time since its founding, ambition no longer means cruelty. The snake emblem still gleams on its banners, but its meaning has changed. The students who return to the dungeons don't carry themselves with superiority anymore. They carry silence. Long nights pass without rivalry or boasting. The dormitories glow faintly with lantern light that never quite goes out, because no one wants to sleep completely in the dark anymore. The house that never slept again, they begin to call it. Not in mockery, but in quiet respect. Draco's name lingers in those stone corridors like an echo. He never comes back to Hogwarts, but everyone still feels him there, the boy who broke a pattern older than the school itself. Younger students whisper about him in tones that hover between fear and fascination. Some say he vanished into exile, others that he joined the ministry under a false name. A few know the truth, that he lives quietly, almost anonymously, far from the noise that once defined him. Yet in Slytherin's heart his legacy grows. It begins subtly, with small acts of defiance against the old stereotypes. A pure-blood girl shares her notes with a half-blood boy without glancing at his surname. Her first year chooses to sit at the edge of the table with a Ravenclaw she admires. Ambition shifts from domination to perseverance. Cunning is redefined as clever survival, not manipulation. The Slytherins who return learn what it means to rebuild trust from ashes. They are still sharp, still proud, but their pride comes from something deeper now, the knowledge that they survived a world that told them they were destined to be villains. Outside the house, the change spreads slowly. Gryffindors stop glaring so hard. Hufflepuffs extend their endless patience. Ravenclaws watch, skeptical but curious. The castle, for all its scars, begins to breathe again. Yet beneath the harmony, an undercurrent remains. A restless awareness that peace is fragile, that goodness is a choice renewed every morning. At night, the corridors fill with soft footsteps. Students wander quietly after curfew, not to cause trouble, but to see the stars through broken windows, to whisper about what the future might look like now that prophecy is no longer running the show. The forbidden forest glows faintly at the edges. Strange creatures moving cautiously under moonlight, reclaiming their territory. Even the ghosts seem gentler. The bloody Baron, once feared by all, drifts silently among his Slytherins, watching them with something like melancholy pride. Perhaps he too senses the shift. Professors notice the change but rarely speak of it. McGonagall, now headmistress, walks the halls late at night and listens to the whispers. Laughter mixed with quiet crying, the steady rhythm of quills scratching out essays under candlelight. She knows healing doesn't happen through lessons or punishments, but through endurance. Each student who dares to hope is a small victory. Years pass, and the castle settles into its new rhythm. The war becomes a story told in classrooms, softened at the edges, made suitable for young ears. The names of the fallen are recited every anniversary, and students stand in reverent silence. But the legend that stirs the most curiosity is not the one about the boy who lived. It's the one about the boy who changed sides at the end. They whisper his name like a secret charm, unsure whether to fear it or admire it. Draco Malfoy becomes a myth of contradictions, the coward who was brave once, the villain who acted like a hero, the symbol of what happens when someone refuses to be the person history expects. Some nights, when the wind blows from the north and the dungeons grow colder than usual, the younger Slytherins swear they can feel him walking through the corridors. They say the torches flicker when someone stands up for what's right, that the walls themselves hum with approval when a student chooses kindness over cruelty. They joke that it's his ghost, but they know he isn't dead. He's simply part of the castle now, his story embedded in the stones the way ancient spells once were. Outside the school, the wizarding world evolves uneasily. The ministry rebuilds itself with promises of fairness and transparency, though politics, as always, mutter beneath the surface. The Malfoy name reappears occasionally in reports about donations to hospitals, restorations, orphan programs. Each time, the articles speculate, debate, argue, but they never confirm anything. Draco never gives interviews. He never attends ceremonies. He doesn't need to. The world that once condemned him now forgets him, and in forgetting him, it grants him peace. Back within Hogwarts, generations change. Students who never saw the war grow up under the weight of stories. They inherit the lessons without the fear. Slytherin's dormitories remain softly lit through the night. The green glow from the underwater windows flickers like heartbeats against the ceiling, and those who can't sleep find comfort in it. They study quietly, plan their futures, whisper to each other that maybe cunning isn't a curse after all. Sometimes, when dawn breaks through the thin slits of the dungeon windows, the light catches the banners just right. The serpent seems to shimmer, its emerald hue turning gold at the edges. For a brief moment, it looks less like a symbol of danger and more like rebirth. No one ever points it out aloud, but they see it. They all see it. And somewhere far away, in a quiet cottage surrounded by fields, Draco wakes to the same dawn. He stands by his window, the morning light cutting across his face, and he feels the faintest tremor in his chest. A connection he can't explain, a whisper from the stones that raised him. Perhaps it's memory, perhaps magic, perhaps both. He doesn't try to define it. He just breathes and lets it be. The world no longer demands that he prove himself. His life is small, unremarkable, but whole. He tends a small garden, reads too much, writes letters that he never sends. He lives in the quiet that once terrified him, and it feels like grace. In Hogwarts, the torches dim slowly as the students drift into uneasy sleep. The castle hums faintly, alive, aware, remembering. And somewhere deep beneath the great hall, where the river flows past the dungeons and the walls remember every word ever spoken, the house that never slept again dreams, not of power, not of fear, but of the moment when one boy's choice redefined what it meant to belong. Years pass quietly. The world that once burned with prophecy and battle learns how to whisper again. London's streets fill with ordinary magic, market stalls humming with charms, children practicing levitation spells under the careful gaze of parents who once fought in the war. Names that once shook the wizarding world, Potter, Granger, Weasley, Malfoy, fade into the steady hum of history. The newspapers move on to new scandals, new heroes, the survivor's age. And beneath it all, time smooths the scars until even memory begins to sound like myth. Draco Malfoy lives far from the city, in a small stone house perched on the edge of an overgrown meadow. The walls are quiet, the air thick with the smell of old books and rain. He keeps no portraits, no heirlooms, no relics of what was. Only one small candle sits on his desk, made of pale wax and lit every evening as the light begins to fade. He doesn't know why he lights it, perhaps to remember, perhaps simply to watch something flicker and live. Outside, the wind carries faint traces of the sea. The world beyond his windows feels distant, muffled by peace. He spends his days tending a neglected garden, reading the same few volumes of poetry over and over, repairing the odd broken charm for villagers who don't recognize his name. They call him Mr. D and smile politely. It suits him fine. He never corrects them. He has no need for legacy anymore, but sometimes, in the evenings when the fog settles low and the candle burns low, he feels it again. That echo, faint but insistent. The hum of Hogwarts, the heartbeat of the great hall, the voices that once filled it, the laughter of those who stayed behind to rebuild. The soft sigh of a castle that once trembled with war, but learned somehow to sleep again. He wonders if anyone still remembers him not as a name, but as a boy who once hesitated, then didn't. Scholars still debate what really happened that night. Some claim his spell was accidental, that it was a rebound or a miscast defense. Others swear they saw something deliberate in the light, a flare of protection, not fear. The truth, as always, lives somewhere in between. But none of it matters to him now. What matters is that he can stand in the quiet and breathe without waiting for consequence. The nights are long, but not lonely. He finds comfort in small things: the sound of rain against glass, the whisper of pages turning, the faint scent of tea cooling beside him. Occasionally an owl lands on the fence, bearing letters from distant names. He reads them all but answers none. Once long ago, one of those letters carried Harry's handwriting, awkward, uncertain, short. It thanked him. Draco never replied. Some silences, he learned, are not distance but understanding. The world outside rebuilds faster than anyone predicted. Hogwarts reopens every autumn, its corridors filling with new laughter that doesn't know the weight of war. The portraits gossip again. The ghosts tell exaggerated stories. New generations arrive, bright-eyed, unscarred. Yet beneath the laughter, the stones keep a secret. One moment, one spell. One heartbeat when a single choice changed the direction of everything, and perhaps that's how history prefers it. Not loud, not perfect, but quietly faithful to the truth. The story of the boy who lived will always shine brightest. But in its shadow, another light still burns, a smaller, steadier flame that never sought recognition. On a cold evening near winter's end, Draco returns to Hogwarts for the first time in many years. He doesn't announce it. He simply walks the familiar path up from Hogsmeade. The air crisp, the stars flickering above him like the watchful eyes of old constellations. The castle rises through the mist, vast and ageless. Its windows glow with warm light. The sight stops him in his tracks. For the first time, he realizes how much it still feels like home. He walks through the gates slowly, hand brushing the cold iron. The air smells faintly of snow and wood smoke. Inside, the corridors are both familiar and new. The portraits repainted, the suits of armor polished, the floors gleaming as if they've never known blood. He passes the great hall and pauses at the threshold. The candles hover once again above the tables, their golden light reflecting in the polished plates. Students chatter softly, laughter echoing off the stone. It looks almost exactly as it did that last night, only without the fear. The ghosts float near the ceiling, humming old songs. It feels alive in a way it hasn't in decades. When the hall empties after dinner, Draco steps inside. He moves to the center of the room, where the marble still bears the faintest scar of a blast long past. He kneels, tracing the cool stone with his fingers, feeling the hum of old magic beneath. The memory comes unbidden. The crack of green light, the shock of gold, the smell of smoke. He closes his eyes and exhales. He lights a candle and places it gently on the floor. The flame dances, small but unwavering. Its light reflects off the walls, painting shadows that sway like ghosts in prayer. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The act itself is the memory. Somewhere in the distance, the clock tower chimes. The sound rolls through the corridors like a heartbeat. The castle listens. The flame flickers, steady, defiant against the draught. He sits there until the candle burns halfway down, the wax pooling on the stone like tears that refuse to fall. Around him, the silence feels sacred, not empty, but full of everything that once was. He imagines the faces of those who stood here, the brave, the foolish, the lost. And for the first time, he doesn't feel apart from them. He feels included. When the flame finally gutters, he rises. The great hall is dark now, lit only by moonlight spilling through the high windows. He looks once more at the ceiling, the enchanted stars glittering faintly, and feels something inside him settle. Peace, maybe, or the nearest thing to it a soul like his will ever find. He leaves the hall slowly, the echo of his footsteps following like an old companion. Outside, the snow begins to fall in soft, soundless flakes, each one catching the candlelight that still lingers behind him. The night smells of frost and forgiveness. By the time he reaches the gate, the castle's lights have dimmed. He turns once, glancing back, and for an instant he sees it. The flicker of a single flame, still burning where he left it. A tiny, persistent glow in the vast dark. A reminder that even the smallest act of mercy can outlast a war. And as he disappears into the snow, that light remains, trembling but unyielding, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. The candle at the end of the war never truly goes out. It simply becomes part of the dawn. 300-word, gentle fade out. The world sleeps easier now. Hogwarts dreams. The past no longer claws at its walls but rests within them, quiet and remembered. Somewhere across the fields morning begins to rise, painting the horizon with the first fragile color of a new day. In that thin golden light, the last traces of darkness scatter, and the long night of fear finally ends. The candle still burns in memory, a soft, unwavering promise that no act of goodness, however small, is ever lost to time. It lives in every kindness whispered, every choice made in silence, every moment when light chooses to stay, even when no one is watching. And so, long after the war, long after names fade from books and portraits, the world endures because of it, because one boy once chose mercy over pride. The flame flickers once more, stretching toward the dawn. Then gently it steadies,